Welcome to today's episode of Expert Showcase. Today on the show we have Jeff McMahon, and he's going to be talking and teaching and showing you all about business versus body and health. Which comes first? Hey Jeff, how you doing today?
I'm great. How are you doing, Chris?
Epic as usual. Jeff, I'm so looking forward to having you on the show today. I'm so looking forward to talking to you all about this topic of business versus body and health, which comes first. I find it interesting at the time of recording this, within the last, 30 days, there's been a lot of talk. I think it was Sheryl Sandberg might have put something out about the fact of, business, body, and health only being able to choose one or something close to that effect. So if somebody wants to write us in and correct me where I went completely off base and tell me it was somebody else and it was a deeper article, that's fine. But the whole point is every time people in business talk about it, you always hear the choice of kind of an either or. Even Michael Hyatt, about a year ago, I think it was a year and a half ago, said something to the effect of, he had gone from working out and he was like at 6% body fat or 3% body fat or something insane. And he was working out every day and he realized he had to devote more time to the business. And when he did, his health, his body, he wasn't as ripped as he was before. So I can't wait to get into the expert focus segment and talk all about this topic with you, an expert in the field of business versus body and health, which comes first. As always, what we're going to do is jump into the hero's journey, and we're going to jump in and talk a little bit about where you were, what that turning point in your life was for you, and where you've gotten to be the success you are. And we know a lot of people's hero's journey don't include yet the going back and bringing people forward. I'm sure yours probably does. So we just focus on the area beginning, turning point, and aftermath. So start off with, why don't you give us a quick overview of your hero's journey?
My hero's journey is almost by accident, I guess you would say. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a surgeon. Doctor was the coolest thing in the world to me. And when I was 2 years into pre-med, I found out I'm colorblind, I can't go to med school. So that shifted me over to pharmacy and business major. So I have a business degree with a double minor in pre-med and pre-pharm. Out of college, and my mom had a massive stroke. I did a lot of therapy with her. From what I learned, got certified in massage therapy, and then from there, got certified into personal training. I like helping people. I loved helping mom go through her rehab and things of that nature. And in my mind, personal training made sense. So we gone through personal training. I'm certified in exercise and sports medicine. So the combination of the medical side and the sports side allows me to help a very dynamic group of people. And so when I had her stroke, she was, why don't we do an online support system for people that can't get out of their house, stroke. She lost use of the whole left side of her body. So traveling was a pain in the ass. So from there, we did an online thing, and then as my personal training, I was like, I got to take this to people all across the country, not just my mom's support group. And at the time, she was in New York. So she, by chance had a stroke, spawned me into having this relation of virtual training to help people all over the country that are busy, that have issues or whatever, and my knowledge to their home. So it's convenient, holds them accountable, and gets them the results that they're looking for.
Epic, and I'm so, your mom is, your mom made it through the stroke. So, but my condolences on at least her having to go through that. I know how life altering that can be for both the patient and their family. So it's epic that you've taken that and created something, epic on the other side of that, and gotten through that. So I just wanted to commend you on that, and whether it was an accident or whether it was all part of the, whether it was all part of the design and all part of the plan, I commend you, because a lot of people wouldn't have had the foresight to turn a tragedy into something successful. So that,
Right.
that is, that's one of the most epic things I think we've heard on the show. We've had some people who've turned tragedies, but like I said, I'm kind of a little lost for words, because health things are always, going through a tragedy like that, it is always a tough thing. So once again, epic
Yeah.
job.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. So let's dive right in and let's get into the beginning. You said you always wanted to be a doctor and that's what you were originally gonna go to school for, right?
hmm Yeah. I love helping people. I'm a people-pleasing kind of guy, and just seeing people smile on their face. I played collegiate soccer, so I got the sports side. Um, and just getting out of college, I was doing triathlons. I was fit, and I'm like, wanted to take my drive and passion and make it into something of a career. And so I was training for about 6 years in a corporate gym. I was the head trainer in Cincinnati, Ohio, for a place called Urban Active. They had 37 locations, and I liked it. It was the corporate side. They were giving me clients as opposed to me getting to with who I wanted to. They had the prices and all that kind of stuff. So when they got bought out by LA Fitness, I went on my own, and that's where that spark happened, that aha moment of that virtual training needs to be what is out there because no one's doing it. And I just happened to come across Pat Flynn's podcast, and he was talking about wanting to train for triathlon. And I'm like, oh, I got 6 people doing the Ironman this year. Why don't I reach out to him and see if he wants to training for a triathlon? And a year and a half ago on Christmas, he reluctantly said yes. And in January, we started, trained 2 triathlons, flew out there in September, first triathlon, got to meet him, spend the weekend with him. And since then, he's loved it, and we've continued. It's been 19 months now we've been together,
Yeah,
going strong and keeping it going. And that spark just, ignited my business to go from 33,000 a year to well over 6 figures a year, and just keep growing exponentially year after year.
yeah, that's amazing. And I love how you put it that he reluctantly agreed. I guess I've never been in a triathlon. I mean, I've done some longer bike rides and that sort of thing. I'm not too big into the whole running aspect. Love the water. So, it's kind of like to be in a triathlon, I would think you'd at least need to be okay with all three things, and I'm not too
hmm
big on the running. Biking, swimming, cool. But I just kind of laughed because you said reluctantly, and I guess it would have to be anybody who'd put their body through what you have to go through in a triathlon. Either you're really passionate about it, or I guess that's just a quick, complete off the wall question here. What gets somebody into, because this might apply to business anyway, what gets somebody into being a triathlete?
Most of the time with triathletes, it's that goal setting. They want to achieve something. I mean, triathlon is, depending on what level you do, is one of the hardest sports athletic thing you can achieve to do. I mean, the Ironman is the epic. That's the 140.4 miles, and you're spending 16 hours to finish these things. So Pat wanted to just we did a sprint and an Olympic, which is the smallest one, and then the next one up for his first time doing it. And the reluctancy is, I didn't know who he was. I didn't know that he was this big godfather of internet marketing and all this jazz. I just heard him. He was the very first podcast, so and then it popped up. And then second, he could have anyone, I mean, he could afford any trainer he wants. And what's this guy halfway across the country virtually going to train him to do a triathlon? And it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, well, and I think you hit the nail on the head, though. A lot of times in business, we look at people who we know are influencers, and people look at us as influencers and specifically come after us for that reason. And, they have an ulterior motive in the back of their head going, well, this person's an influencer. So if I reach out to them and if I just get seen or known by them, then my business is going to take off. Where you, on the other hand, did exactly the opposite in what I believe is the right way. You see somebody that you can help, you reach out to them in the interest of helping them, and in the end stumble across the fact that wow, they're kind of big and kind of popular, and yeah, if this does work out, that things can skyrocket. So
Right.
I think that's one of the huge learnings. I want to go back a little bit further though, because in the beginning phase, whenever we're going through, before we hit that turning point, before we hit that success, that afterwards, people go through a lot in the beginning. Sometimes they're successful, sometimes they aren't. So before the turning point, before you had this aha to turn this into a virtual before your mom's stroke, before you had the aha to turn this into a virtual thing, during that beginning time, what do you remember about that? Were you successful? Were you struggling? What was going on in that beginning time?
The beginning time, I was yearning for knowledge, so I kept, I got one certification and I got a second one. I was quickly noticed by the director of fitness for the health gym that I was at, and I was one of the very first head trainers in the whole organization to, be in charge, do all the hiring, the firing, being the manager of the personal training departments. And so my drive was there to grow and be a leader. Um, and over that time, I needed that because I was still new into the fitness world. Playing sports is one thing, but to take that knowledge and apply it to someone that's completely different or that's 50 years older than you and has injuries and all that kind of stuff is a different ballpark. So when I was in the beginning phases, it was all about knowledge, a lot of studying, and just learning my craft. So, it took me about 2 or 3 years to have covered enough diversity of people that anyone that comes in front of me, I'm 100% comfortable dealing with. Instead of, oh, I don't know what to do with a spinal stenosis, I got to back away. Now, that's like second nature, or whatever the issue may be.
Right, and that's epic, and it's what I love that you said is you were yearning for knowledge. A lot of people, especially in the culture and the climate we in, are yearning for that success. And one of my mentors, John Maxwell, often talks about you want to do what I did, you want to do what I do, but you want to do what I did to get here. Whew, I can say that way too many do's and dids in there, but it's the same thing that you're talking about. You were yearning for knowledge, and I'm sure you wanted to succeed, but you understood that if you just got the knowledge and then applied it and did it in the right way, that you would succeed. I mean, is that a fair assessment, or were you out there, pushing yourself even further, and I'll say demanding your success and your place in the business before you were actually ready? Which way did you go?
I went with the first. Like even now, when I switched to the virtual training, I really didn't know much about the online world, about podcasts and webinars and all that kind of stuff. So I dove right into business books, listened to as many podcasts as I can, taking notes, slowly but surely applying them. I started with a Squarespace website, and then it transitioned to a WordPress website, and just over time doing it by myself, because that's how I learn the best, and that's how, when I make the mistakes, because I've made a ton of mistakes, ton of business mistakes, I grow and I succeed further because of those learnings.
Yeah, exactly. I think we all have. I used to tell everybody, you don't have to worry about making mistakes with your money because I've already made all of them with my, with my own money or my own time. So from the
Exactly.
beginning, yeah, exactly. So from the beginning phase, is there one big learning or key point that you'd like the audience and our viewers to understand that you got out of your beginning phase?
Yeah, the beginning phase that really messed me up was the shiny object syndrome, because getting into the virtual side, I was like, you know what, I'm going to host 5K charity races. I'm a fitness guy. I like to be fit, so how hard can it be to get people together to run? They do them all the time. And I lost about $15,000 in that three-race venture trying to get people to show up, learn marketing, learn, t-shirt design, medallions, music, food, all that kind of jazz. And I took a lot away from it as far as how people view those things, working with charities. I'm in Cincinnati. I teamed up with 10 local charities, so I grew my outreach as far as my donations and things go, but it was very costly to me and my family. I thought this was going to be my big break, so that 33,000 a year dropped down to about 17,000 that year. My wife was about ready to kill me. I'm lucky I'm still alive. And she's a police officer, so she has two guns. We have a German Shepherd police dog, so multiple ways I could not be here right now. But anyway, but from that, I learned to never do that again, to focus what I'm good at. So the biggest takeaway was I'm good at helping people. I'm good at health and fitness. Stick to that craft. And from there, from that point forward is when my business started to grow, double every year continuously.
Epic. So I think it's an epic place for us to pause for just one quick second and then go right into the turning point. So I know this was, I know there's definitely some, some feelings and some, uh, it was definitely not a good time. I mean, because one of the pieces of the turning point was, happened around your, happened because of your mom's stroke. So let's talk
Hmm.
about the turning point a little bit here and what you went through and what you learned and what knowledge you can pass on to our viewers from that.
The turning point of the business loss or the turning point of the health with my mom? Which side do you want to go through?
Well, in the end, it's all part of your hero's journey. So whichever you feel most comfortable and you feel your biggest learnings came from, what we like to do
Okay.
is see, okay, right at that turning point, and what was going on, and what made you make the decisions, and then what decisions you made based on that sort of thing. So our
Okay.
audience can learn when they're going through and experiencing the same thing themselves.
Yeah, like with the races, I did learn about what radio media is like. What I did TV commercials, I did billboards, I did magazine ads. So I got to understand that aspect of it for a community, and that knowledge was invaluable. But the hard part is that I would spend $5,000 on marketing and only reap about $1,000 to $2,000 in profit from the race. So I was at a loss and I was like, okay, the next race is going to be bigger, and it wasn't. And then the next race was going to be even bigger, and it wasn't. And you know, I I should have scaled it down a lot more than that, and I didn't. But in my head, the shiny object was, oh, if I just get 600 people there, I'll make $20,000, and this will be easy, and it's a weekend, and who doesn't want to show up for a good cause? Um, and so I neglected everything else because I was just so focused on seeing that big $20,000 number or whatever number it was for the race, and realizing that it wasn't my passion. I don't run now. I mean, I do triathlons, but I don't run for fun. I'm not like, oh, let's go run 10 miles today. I'm not that guy. So I just didn't have that desire, and I kind of forced it on myself, and that's where the biggest learning point for anyone is focus. What your desire is what your gut will tell you, and when you listen to that is when you reap the benefits of your business being successful. People, word of mouth just growing because, oh, Jeff's a great trainer, and you guys got to work out with him. Look at these results I got. Pat went from never doing a triathlon to being the 110 out of 1,200 men. He was in like almost the top 10 percentile of it. Beat his goal time to over 20 minutes. Like, things of that nature is what I'm good at. So when I stick to that is when the success came.
Yeah, and it's so interesting you point out because I'm a big believer in the law of attraction. I do believe that, when we're asking for the right things and we're asking for things that are what we're meant to have, that they will come. It's kind of like you can't ask for, can't ask for $1 billion if you're meant to have 1 million. So, I mean, it's something that you can't ask for. And just like in your case, you are out asking for this success in these races and doing what we all do because we've all read Napoleon Hill, we've all read, Maxwell Maltz, we've all read James Allen, we've all read, Wallace D. Wallace, we've all read all these guys, and basically it's like, look, you have to have this vision, and if you just stick to the vision, and you never know when you're 3 feet from gold, and all the stuff that we've been taught in this industry. And while it definitely works, and there's definitely cases where it has worked, where you have to keep going, at some points you have to look at it and say, as you did, you have to look at it and say, hey, isn't it my passion lane? Isn't what I'm meant to do? Isn't my 0 point? Isn't what I do best? So no matter how much I hope and pray and want 600 people to show up, there's just things that it's just not gonna happen. So
Exactly.
the question for you is this though, is so let's say somebody is out there and really believe, has had a bad event or a bad first thing, but really believes it's their passion and they want to keep going. What learnings when you had the bad for when you had a less than ideal first event and you tried to do your second event, did you change anything? Did you do anything different, or did you do exactly the same thing you did for the first event and just more of it? Which was it?
I changed the marketing. So like the first event was a dog run. You run with your dog, and so that one was radio spots and TV commercials because dogs are cute on TV. Um, and so we got 150 people there that showed up. But it was pouring down rain. It wasn't a great weekend, so that was bad. Then the second one was going to be a Mother's Day race, and I had like TV giveaway prizes, pure romance things, Victoria's Secret gift cards, like all this kind of stuff. So I went with more of the merchandising, and we did billboard ads for that one. Literally 13 people signed up for that race, and I had to cancel it, which means I lost all the money I spent on the advertising. So then the next one was a country music race. So I spent a lot on bars where people are listening to country music at nighttime. Went to a lot of restaurants. I had a live band there. Went to I paid for radio spots on country music stations and in the magazines and stuff like that for what I thought people were going to be checking out. And I had 250 people show up to that one. That was my most successful one. But again, it was nowhere near the point of profit that was what I needed.
So I think that's a really interesting story because you did what everybody would say you should have done to be successful. It's not like, a lot of times I'll hear people who promoted events, and I've done it too. I mean, I've promoted events and, I've tried to do the whole word of mouth thing. And, I've gotten people involved in the events that I knew were good promoters that just didn't come through and didn't promote. So, people would say, well, you could have done more. But man, listen to everything you did. You did everything right. You went out and said, okay, I'm going to go to where the people are. I'm going to give the giveaways that are going to attract people to the event. I'm going to do everything right. And yet you still didn't make a profit. So my question to you, and the reason I want to kind of summarize that is I have a question to you. After that third event, after that, when you had, you get 250 people, which is a lot of people, but it's not profitable, so you needed a lot more. What did you think about at that point? What was going through your mind after that third event? Did you think about doing a fourth event, or was that the point where things just changed and you said, I got to do something different?
I was planning on doing a fourth event, which was an 80s themed race, and it was just at that third race that I realized I was marketing to the wrong people. Instead of marketing to runners who actually do races and want to keep going with races, I was marketing to the masses of just anyone that had a dog, saying, hey, come to this dog race, as opposed to runners that have dogs. So it taught me about the niche market and focus on, you can't market to everybody because no one's going to show up. I was a prime example of that. I should have focused on, runners the entire time, going to the running stores, the running magazines, that kind of jazz. I just assumed that was a given, and and after that third race, I was going to do the fourth one, but the wife was on the opposite side of that opportunity, so if I wanted to stay married, we had to go through a compromise, and I'm still married. So.
Well, and it's interesting because it's always great to have that balance in your life, that person that helps balance you out. It's great when they support your dreams, but it's also good when they've given you the support for the dreams, but then at least are willing to talk to you and kind of, balance things out and because I'm sure that she at least gave you an opportunity to run the fourth race. I'm sure she wasn't like, I'm leaving you if you run a fourth race, right?
No, not that. It was just, she's like, we have two kids, we have a house, we have a mortgage, you're down this much. I mean, we can't, it just, we weren't going to go, I didn't want to go through bankruptcy. It was a bad year, financially as it was anyway, but it, you have to fail in order to succeed next. I mean, I don't know anyone that's in business that just automatically succeeded.
Right. And even the people who do seem like they automatically succeeded have been doing other things forever. Like there's a story, I think it's Brendan Burchard, wrote children's books before he became, the motivational experts academy type speaker
Right.
and everything he is today. So I think everybody's got that story. John Maxwell was a pastor of a church in Hillham, Indiana. It was like 12 people or something crazy like that. So, so yeah, it's very, very interesting. In fact, I also just saw, everybody knows how big of a success Tony Robbins is, but I just saw, I think, somebody put on their Facebook something about, what started off in small halls is now up to arenas, and I guess they're going to do an unleash. It sounds like they're doing an unleash the power within in an arena coming in the next year or something like that, like in a big arena
Wow.
setting. So yeah, it's kind of, and there's going to be a lot of people who, granted, unless you're under a rock for the last 20 years, probably not. But there's going to be some people who just have never heard of Tony Robbins. You go, wow, he's big. He just is overnight success. And it's like, no, you obviously were watching the infomercials in the 90s where he was walking on the beach talking to, I forget the newscaster's name, but talking about living in a bus and all those other stuff. So we can go
Right.
on forever about that. So let me take my one breath an hour and then let's jump into the aftermath, because
Okay.
after this turning point of having the races and just looking at it and just not succeeding, then you obviously at that point, like you had said, during the third race, and for those of you who just tuning in, you're going to have to go back and watch the turning point in the rest of this episode to hear the whole story. And Jeff, you were saying during that third race is when you were finally starting to get the clue in your gut that maybe doing this wasn't your passion. Is that correct?
Yes, the third race was the point of, listening to the people around me as opposed to being a stubborn entrepreneur. No, 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 this is it, and not taking a objective view of my surroundings. It was when after that third race, I was like, okay, I need to reevaluate the situation.
Yeah, and I love it. You say being a stubborn entrepreneur, and I hear thinking with the head, and then we're also talking about trusting your gut. So at that point, if you can remember, were you thinking that you were being stubborn because it's what your gut was telling you to do, or were you overriding your intuition with what was going on in your head? Can you remember what you were going through at that point?
Yeah, I was overriding what my gut was telling me. Yeah, my gut, what I love to do, what I'm good at, was not races. And I was like, no, we're going to do this. I see all these races, and Cincinnati is a big running place. There's mud runs here. There's all this jazz. I'm like, this is going to be easy. We just need to do one more time. We just need to do another one. And I should have listened to my gut as opposed to overriding it.
Yeah, and I love that because once again, as we talked about in the previous, everybody's read, Think and Grow Rich, and everybody's heard the story 3 feet from gold. And the problem with some of us entrepreneurs is we always think that we're 3 feet from gold, and we shut off that intuition that's telling us, well, okay, let's try a different path. Because while you might have been 3 feet from maybe bronze at that point,
Right.
obviously you switched paths and you found gold. So
Yeah.
you dug in a different direction. When you were going through, because I'm quite sure there's many entrepreneurs and many coaches who are watching the show right now who are going through the same thing, that have heard all this stuff about, keep pushing forward and keep digging that tunnel to find that gold. When you went through, you had said you started to reevaluate things. Do you remember any process you went through? Was there any, thing you sat down, did you write things down? Did you talk to people? What process did you go through to start reevaluating things?
Well, I was personal training the whole time of doing these races. The races was going to be, so big that I could stop personal training and do this full-time event thing. But so, I would ask my clients, what am I doing wrong? What's going on here? What's the magic secret to make this thing happen? And that was when, not only my wife, but some of the other people were like, you're not a runner. You can't just do this and think it's going to automatically work. You're good at training. Focus on what you're good at. And um, as soon as I did that was the transitional point of, okay, how do I grow, my solopreneur business of, a personal trainer? How do I grow my brand out there? What do I do to increase word of mouth? How do I set up referral programs? How do I do challenges to make it more fun and people wanting to come in and tell their friends about it? Things of that nature.
Oh, epic. And that's, it's all about focus. It's all about, focusing on what you're best at and what makes you successful and what makes you you, and then channeling all your energies in that direction, right?
I mean, because I would after that third race and losing all that money, it hurt inside. My dream is to be successful and not live paycheck to paycheck, and we were definitely living paycheck to paycheck at the time, and I just had that burning desire of never, I never want to get a job again. I always want to work for myself, and so the entrepreneur fire was inside me, but just the path to success was not, I wasn't on the right one. I just had to alter it and take a hard left.
So let me ask you a question because a lot of people struggle with this. They look at people who are entrepreneurs maybe doing information products or doing something else, and I'll say races is a great example because races is a one to many thing. You can do it once, bring many people in, and you can make a profit off of it. Was there any drive? Did So let me ask you this first. Was there any drive to get out of the one-to-one thing and take your skills and knowledge to a greater audience? Was that part of the drive?
Yeah, that was part of the drive. Try to grow not the infomercial, P90X kind of style, but to have a bigger um, community following of people that like what I do. I'm different from everyone else because of my diversity in my workouts. I use every single functional piece of equipment you have. I'm a black belt, so I do a lot of martial arts and kickboxing with my clients. We do a lot of sports training. I used to be a gymnast, so we incorporate that in the core. So it's when you think of personal trainer, most people see a meathead. We're just going to build big muscle and that's it. I'm more of the fun, sarcastic, enjoy the workout, but at the same time, half my people, are battling cancer or diabetes or had a total knee replacement. I do a lot of the injury rehab, that kind of jazz that I can transfer someone's life of being miserable and not being able to do much to going from a knee replacement at 66 years old and that next year going with their son to Scotland and climbing 17 castles, 1,500 steps. Like, he didn't miss a beat, and he's, thanked me for that because of the ability that he's able to do.
Right. And isn't that so much more enjoyable and doesn't it give you so much more happiness and satisfaction than watching 300 people run for 5 or 10K?
Yes, exactly.
Well, but and it's kind of a little bit of a joke, but that ends up becoming the serious part of this is the fact that, and I guess where I was getting at before, let me ask you a direct question. Was the draw of making possibly quick money in a short time? In other words, running the races, yes, having to invest a lot, but then boom, being able to just market it and then, on that race day, you get 5,000 people and you've made a huge profit. Do you think the draw of making that, I'll call it quick money versus the passion you have, do you think that draw of making quick money overrode the passion you had for other things, meaning that that was kind of like you were looking at that brass ring, just going for that brass ring and not realizing that you could build a more successful business um, with doing what you really loved?
Yeah, because I mean the races were stressful and it was that shiny object syndrome, like, oh, that quick money is going to make such a big difference. And in reality, um, I'm more successful now. I mean, I work 6.5 days a week. I'm always working, but I don't wake up stressed any day. I love all my clients that I have. I get to hang out with friends more than, oh, I got to go to work on Monday. And Mondays from 6 in the morning until 8:30 at night. So my Mondays are a long day of people, but I look forward to it because we get to hang out, get to catch up on them. We get to transform their life, meet whatever goals they're looking for, and I just never want that anxiety. So in doing what I love makes me happy literally every single day of my life.
Yeah, and that is so important. I think that's a good place to kind of wrap up the aftermath because it is so important to be able to do what you love and to be able to figure out how to monetize it. And the beautiful part about living in the time and age we are is you can monetize pretty much anything. Whether you can monetize it to live a successful lifestyle or not, that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother time. There are, many things you can, and most things, you can find enough with going on 8 billion people, or how many ever billion people we have in the world today. We're fortunate to live in the time that we do because if you're just looking at monetizing something for you, excuse me, or for your family, usually you can monetize your passion in a way that'll at least give you a sustainable life. And the interesting thing, and I can't wait to talk about this in the second half, because Jeff, just to give a real quick preview of the second half, I think you mentioned about being a virtual trainer and training some people, if not, training at least some of your clients virtually, right?
Correct.
Oh, epic. So I'm sure during as we talk about being accountable, nutrition, and knowledge of a plan, I'm sure we'll be able to throw some stuff in there because I'm really interested to hear, excuse me, more about that piece of your business as well. So folks, I think we're gonna do a cough counter for the over under today. For those of you, yes, I haven't announced an over under. I was trying to figure out if it was a scratch or a cough, but I think it's gonna be a cough, and I'm already at 2, so we're gonna make it 5. So the under is 4, the push is 5, and the over is 6. For those of you who never watched before, you'll get the hang of it. For those of you old hats to this, there's number 3. I think I'd bet the over today. I don't know. Just me. I think I'd bet the over. But then again, it's you and it's your own thing, whatever you want to do. So we're going to take a very, very quick break so you can figure out whether you want to bet the over or under, and then we'll be back with Jeff, and we're going to talk all about business versus body and health, which comes first, and I'm sure we'll also get into at least a little bit about Jeff's virtual training and how epic and interesting that whole concept is. So stick around, and we'll be right back. Are you a coach, an author, or a speaker who wants your very own web TV show just like Expert Showcase, only with all your branding around it? Then what you want to do is head on over to VideoContent.Agency, go up to the Work With Us tab, send us your information, let's start a conversation, let's see if we can develop a program around you and your message. And until we see you there, make it an epic day. Welcome back to today's episode of Expert Showcase. Today on the show we have Jeff McMahon, and now we're going to jump into the expert focus. And by the way, folks, if you didn't hear and you just joining us and you didn't watch and listen to Jeff's hero's journey, you got to go back and watch and listen to it, because as you come to expect from Expert Showcase, there are a ton of golden nuggets, a lot about business and a lot about how Jeff went through his struggles to end up coming out on the other side, and realized that one of the things he realized was that being focused was much better than being diffused, so to speak. And I know you hear it all the time, but until you hear from a person who was struggling paycheck to paycheck and turned, a $33,000 a year business into, I think you said 7 figures at this point, Jeff, or at some point 7 figures?
Multiple 6 figures, yeah.
Multiple 6 figures. Well, see, we're pushing you forward. You're going to get to 7 figures.
Yeah.
It's that call.
That's what I'm hoping. Let's go.
It's exactly so. But the whole point is when you go from under 50K to multiple 6 figures. That's a success story, and one of the ways he did it was through staying focused. And you have to go back and watch the hero's journey piece of our show to find out all about that. So Jeff, in this part of the show, now we're going to focus on your focus, the expert focus, business versus body and health, which comes first. So let's start off with giving a quick summary. Then I'll give the folks the 3 keys to success, and we'll dive right in. Give us a quick summary of what we're going to be talking about here in this episode today.
Yeah, the quick summary is going to be just about how accountability, reverse engineering your lifestyle, and prioritizing your time makes everything happen, where fitness doesn't have to be put on the back burner. Your health should be just as important as your money, and you don't let your money, your business you don't walk away from your business and just let it go for years and expect great things. You can't let your health go for years and expect you to be healthy and, look presentable on stage and have confidence and, not have health issues and all that kind of jazz. So the big focus today is going to be how to combine those so it's convenience, accountable, and you get results so you're happy at the end of the day.
Wow, that is epic, because as we all know, there's these ideas floating around that I think it's health, friendship, business, and I forget what else. There's a list of 3 or 5 things, and they say you're only allowed to. I think there's a list of 3 things, and you're only allowed to pick 2. Maybe I'll look that up by the time this episode actually airs and put the link in, since I mentioned it twice and I still can't remember what exactly it was. But that's besides the point. The 3 keys to success we're going to be talking about today are being accountable, nutrition, and knowledge of a plan. So Jeff, let's dive right in. The first thing is being accountable. What are we going to talk about here?
Well, I mean, accountability is the big differentiator to wanting to get results and actually getting results. I mean, anyone can order a DVD that's, P90X or something like that, or get an app on their phone because they're free and things of that nature. But we all know when you're home, no one's going to, there's so many other things that distract you that you're not going to just, oh, I'm going to go in the basement and work out right now. You might have the plan when you wake up in the morning, but by the end of the day, you're going to be like, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow. Oh, I'm too busy, I'm tired, I'll do it tomorrow. But when you have that meeting that you're supposed to meet with your health coach in the morning or whatever time you set for your appointment, you're going to show up to it because you don't want to let that person down. Psychologically, we don't want to let people down, and that comes all the way from, you know, growing up. You don't want to let your parents down. You don't want to let your teachers down in school. You know, your coach if you're playing a sport. So it's ingrained in us as youth. So when we're adults, subconsciously we have that same. I don't want to let someone else down, so I'm definitely going to make it to the meeting. I mean, I didn't want to let Chris down, so I showed up to my appointment today. You know, it's things of that nature that the accountability is the main focus of my business, to allow people to not have the dream but live the dream.
Yeah, I love that. Not only have the dream, but live the dream. Love it, love it. But I have a question about accountability because there are some people who struggle with accountability. Now, put aside the question of whether they're your ideal clients or not. We can answer that in a second. But when it comes to accountability, first of all, have you ever found somebody in your life or in your one of your clients who has struggled with accountability?
Yeah, I mean, accountability from, you know, everyone is different, so no one's going to have the same background or life or things of that nature. So accountability for everyone and is different as far as, you know, the results and everything like that. So when I see people that struggle with accountability, they're more or less afraid, and that fear is what holds them back, as opposed to the open-mindedness of what you need to get that accountability partner.
Wow, and that is so true because I've known a lot of people who struggle. I know a lot of people too who struggle with accountability, and what it all boils down to is fear of something. It might be fear of
Yeah.
success. You know, it might be. I mean, let me ask you that question. When you're talking about being accountable, so I know we're focused on being accountable, but since we talked about fear here for a second, when you see somebody who's maybe has the fear of being held accountable for something, and that and the fear of do you ever find that it's maybe could be a fear of success, like the fear of, oh my gosh, if I lose this weight or if I get healthy or if I become more active, then and then fill in the blank. Do you ever find that
I have a
happen?
prime example of that. Um, a lady is married, a child. They got divorced. She still has custody of the children, but she gained a lot of weight from it, and she's so afraid of losing weight because she doesn't want to be checked out by another guy, or just um, let down by another guy or something like that. That she'd rather be overweight and avoided or looked past than being healthier and putting herself out there because she's fear of rejection. And it boils down to the fear of rejection. And so that's like a prime example of that fear can just be so overwhelming in your life that, I mean, you're willing to give up your health as opposed to wanting to make the change to be healthy, to be around for your daughter or kids or whatever you have going on.
Well, and that ends up becoming what's your big why. I mean, right now, her why of not being hurt again by another guy is more powerful than the why of being, and I hate to say it this way, and I'll say it because she's your client, so she can yell at me, but it sounds like her why of not being, wanting to be hurt again is more powerful than the why of wanting to be around for her children forever because it's very,
Yep.
very painful, and it's very, very painful to get hurt again. Whereas in the brain can rationalize it and say, well, it's going to be 50 years or something until we have to deal with the health issues, right?
Right. And I mean, a lot of the problem with being overweight or even diabetes and things of that nature is it doesn't hurt. If you have a broken arm, you're not going to use that arm because it hurts. But when you're overweight, you're not going to stop eating or change your eating habits because it's not hurting you to do so. And so that was another big thing of finding out in my profession is how to take that and more or less educate people so that fear isn't so scary. People are a lot of afraid of what they don't know, and so the more education they have and understanding, that's why I try to put it in layman's terms, and I don't do the whole yelling boot camp thing because it's more understanding the body that people see the big difference, and not the Jillian Michaels that Biggest Loser. I can't stand her, but Biggest Loser aspect where you just, we got to do this right now or else you're worthless, and like that doesn't help, especially when these are real people, not that kind of jazz.
Yeah, exactly. Well, back to the account, and I so agree, and back to that accountability thing. Obviously, you have an ideal client, so I'm going to guess you have pretty much a constant way of keeping people accountable. But when you're looking at people, keeping people accountable, do if you get somebody who might not be your ideal client at the beginning, do you find different ways of helping to keep them accountable? Or is that maybe a standard? Is everybody different when it comes to how to keep them accountable for something?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest issue with accountability is finding out the why. If you need to hold yourself accountable, ask yourself why, and then ask yourself why again. Like if there's 5 levels to asking why is when you get to the root of it. Um, and then if you can't do it yourself, then you hire a coach like me or someone else that's, whatever to help you along that journey. And so my biggest thing for anyone looking for accountability, no matter what your goals are, why is that goal important? Okay, now what's that why? Like if you want to train for a cycling event, why do you want to train for that cycling event? What's so important that that cycling event means more than, you have to wake up early in the morning? Things of that nature, you just break down the layers so you get to the root of it, and that's where accountability is at the bottom.
Oh, epic! And I love the 5 levels. I mean, when I teach people things, I tell them to continue asking themselves why
Yeah.
until they find the answer. But I love the 5 levels, and that kind of puts at least a casing around it to give people a little bit more to grab onto. The
Right.
interesting thing I think I heard in there was that you can be accountable to yourself. So let me ask you this question. I know external. A lot of times when we talk about accountability and being accountable, it's always to somebody else. And even at the beginning of this conversation, we start off by talking about being accountable to somebody else. But do you find that in some cases people can be accountable to themselves and at least make some progress?
Yeah, and that's why like my programs I have set in 3 different levels depending on what your accountability needs are. But like I hold myself accountable. I don't have a workout partner. I have to the drive inside myself because I did find out my whys. And when I got down to it, the main point is my mom had a lot of medical issues. My family's had, cancers and all that kind of jazz. I want to live as healthy as I can to know that I gave my body the best chance in this world. And that was before kids, before marriage, kind of stuff. My mom was born with a hole in her heart. She had open heart surgery after I was born. The stroke. She's had breast cancer twice. Thyroid issues, brain deterioration. There's a whole gambit that my why is to be healthy so I can take care of people, and that's my driving motivation. So when I do it to other people, it's coming from a good place because I did it to myself.
Wow, that is so profound, and it's an example of where when you have that deep enough why, and when you have
Hmm.
that burning desire why, you can achieve. I I pause before I say anything. You can achieve anything you were meant to achieve, and not that me or
Right.
anybody else is holding you down. The fact of it is, you have a blueprint inside of you, to be successful. And once you find it, live to, through, and within it, I call it the 0 point. It's something that you can be ultra successful. So it's just amazing how you've turned a lot of negativity and a lot of tragedy, as people would talk about, into positivity. And before we wrap up the accountable, I love the fact that what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're saying is when you find that deep enough why, you can get to a point where you can hold yourself accountable and still achieve success without needing that external accountability partner, so to speak, that has been pushed in and is said is that a lot of people say is so critical to success.
Right. I mean, people stick with me because they like the different workouts, the, new routines and all that kind of jazz. But as far as, after a year or two of being with me, they're to the point that they could do it on their own. It's just more of a preference that they'd like to work with someone. But, whoever's going to stick with me forever, I'd be happy if they did. But, my job is to make people to the point where they can do it on their own.
Right, exactly. And I guess that's one of the things I was to wrap up accountability, one of the things I was trying to get to was it's great to have an accountability partner at the beginning, and it's great.
Yeah.
There are people who need external accountability partners, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. My contention is that our industry a lot pushes that external accountability because let's face it, external accountability equals more money and more clients for a lot of people. I'm a big believer that, as you know, as you had said, people come in, we help them for a time. If they stay with us forever, that's great. But our goal should really be to get them to be self-sufficient and be able to rely on themselves because there's going to come a time where we're not around. And if we
Yeah.
force them to rely on us, then we're actually doing them a disservice, right?
Right. That's why I do as much education as I can, break down their barriers as much as I can, and uh, make it a part of their lifestyle. So even if it's not with me, they're going to have that desire to keep going on their own or whatever.
Epic, epic. So let's go ahead and jump into nutrition. So what are we going to talk about here in nutrition?
Well, nutrition's a big part because anyone that's lost weight, you can't do it from working out. You lose weight by changing your diet or nutritional plan or whatever you want to call it. I don't like diet because it's always short term, but um, to lose weight, you have to eat healthier. Then from that, you work out to tone up your body so you look the way you want to look. So you need both, but the most important is 80% is nutrition, 20% is working out. So when you have the nutrition on point, your workouts will accentuate, but you can never outwork out your diet. And so when teaching people that process of, diet or nutrition is just a numbers game. When you find out how many calories your body burns every day, and you eat 500 calories less than that a day, in a week you've lost a pound of weight. And then if you're working out and you're burning more calories, but you're keeping your intake down, then you're going to burn weight or lose weight faster. I mean, it's just math. So once you figure out that formula, gaining weight, losing weight, whatever, isn't as scary as it sounds. You don't have to live on rabbit food and, do all these power shakes and take fat burner pills and that kind of jazz. You just got to focus on the numbers, apply it to every single day, be consistent with it, and then your body starts to be, regular. I'm not going to be gross, but like going to number one and number two, you lose weight by going to the bathroom.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
if you are not doing that, anyone that's listening to this, if you're not going to the bathroom at least twice a day for number two, and at least peeing at least 2 or 3 times a day, you're not pushing the toxins and fat out of your body, so it stores up and builds up bacteria and everything else, and it's not good. So that's just food for thought. See where you are. I mean, you don't have to tell me, but just see where you are, and that'll help out with how healthy you are.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll get 1,000 comments below. Hey, I took a dump twice today. Woo!
Best day ever.
Yeah, yeah. I have a running joke. I have a number of clients who are in the baby boomer generation, and we always joke that we always know how much older we're getting. It's all in when the conversation turns to bowel movements. It's like if it's the first thing out of your mouth, you know you're about 85 years old. It's like you ever call a grandma and find out what the first thing she says to you, and normally it's, well, I was pretty regular today. So anyway, enough about that. But no, it's so interesting because I went through my own weight loss journey as the viewers have heard before, and that was one of the things that they were always really concerned about. They said, look, you depending on what plan you're on, depending on what you're doing, we understand you're trying to lose weight, but if you find that things aren't just moving right, then you're maybe not taking enough fat in, which is so counterintuitive to losing weight. I mean, I know there's a paleo diet. I know there's 1,000 different ways to do it, but a lot of people think that hey, this is great. My body's just processing everything, and it's like, well, yeah, it could be to a point, but anyway, you're the expert in this. I'm
But,
just babbling at this point. Go ahead.
well, be honest. You lost weight by changing your nutritional plan or by working out? Which
No, I
one?
mean that's the funny thing. Nobody believed it, but both times that I lost, I lost 100 pounds once and like 80 pounds the second time, and both times, and nobody believes it, but I did, I didn't work out a stitch, and it
Right.
was all about changing. It was all about changing the amount of food, and for me, and here's what I wanted to ask you and see if you found this with your clients as well. for me, it was all about almost regardless, not regardless of the calories, because calories are an important measure, but it was about having that right mix of salty and sweet and fat and carb and the right mix of food to allow my body to process the food right. Not necessarily, depriving and going completely, always completely fat free or always completely sodium free or always completely carb free. I mean, what have you found when it comes to nutrition with your clients?
Well, I mean, the scariest thing about fat-free is things are supposed to have fat in it. Your body needs fat to be able to break down carbohydrates, proteins, and all that kind of jazz. It uses it for energy. Because when you don't have fat, then it starts eating your muscles, and then your heart is a muscle. Things start to shut down. I mean, it's serious. So, yes, people take in way too much fat, way too many carbs, things of that nature. But when you get a coach or read up more or whatever, you start to learn how your body uses all of those. I have carbs in my diet, I have fat in my diet, I have fruits, I have lots of veggies, and I have protein, and a shit ton of water. Like
Yeah.
water, 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 water. So you have to have water because it keeps your body hydrated. I mean, you put gas in your car if you want to go somewhere.
Yeah.
You got to put water in your body if you want to do anything with it. But I mean, the biggest thing with nutrition is just understanding that you do need all of them, and it's finding the balance of your basal metabolic rate, which is that number of how many calories you burn, finding out how many calories you're eating, and then exercise, like I said, helps, but it's not necessary as opposed to, in just the topic of losing weight.
Right. Now I heard that the figure I've always gone by is it is 10, yeah, 10 calories per pound. Like in other words, if you can't go and get tested for what your actual base metabolic rate is, your resting metabolic rate, I've always heard it's roughly about 10 calories per pound. So in other words, if you're a 200-pound man, that's kind of where they came up with the whole 2,000 calorie diet. So if
Yeah,
you're a 200-pound man and you want to lose a pound a week, you have to cut your diet down to 1,500 calories a day. And if you cut it down to 1,500
correct,
calories a day,
correct.
you'll end up losing quote unquote a pound a week. So see
But
folks,
just
it's simple.
I mean, just Google the letters B as in basal, M as in metabolic, and R as in rate. BMR. If you Google that, you'll have there's formulas right there. You just plug in your height, your age, your weight, and your activity level, and it'll tell you what your number is. And it'll tell you how many calories to lose weight. And then you can go online and find diet plans for that weight, calorie count, all that kind of jazz. You just have to be open to what I tell everyone is like eating green vegetables and changing the carbs that you eat. Like the three carbs that you want to focus is sweet potatoes, brown rice, quinoa, I guess, and oatmeal. I mean, those are the only carbs that I really eat. Uh, Protein is a whole wide gambit, but green veggies, if you eat green vegetables at night, your body will have enough vitamins and minerals to burn fat while you sleep. So if you're looking to lose weight, eating green vegetables at night is your body burns fat when it's sleeping. That's when your body is recuperating, catching up, and everything like that. That's the way the cycle works is as you intake oxygen and convert it to CO2, that's how your body burns fat, and you do the most of that either while exercising or while sleeping. So if you do exercise a lot and sleep a lot, that's why they say you got to get 7 to 8 hours a night of sleep, because that's in order to lose weight. That's what you need to be doing. If you go less than that, you're not giving your body enough time to be burning fat.
Wow, that's amazing. And it's funny because you talk about green veggies, and I know a lot of people, kind of cringe when they hear that. I tell you, one of the things that I did is I love chicken and broccoli, and I got kind of on that kick when I was when I lost my weight the last time. But I just love throwing throwing a nice 4 to 8 ounce piece of chicken in a pan, boneless, skinless chicken in a pan, throwing a half a bag of broccoli, all around it, and that ends up being a huge meal. I mean, when you're talking about 8 ounces of 4 to 8 ounces of protein and pretty much 5 servings of broccoli, but if you look at the calories, it's like 400 calories, and
Right.
it's something that and you feel full until like the next day, until the next day doing it. And the other thing that I do, just real quick, like I said, you're the expert, but just to kind of give folks one of my tricks is, I'll get Costco sells this no salt organic seasoning, and it's all like oregano and parsley and black pepper and all this other stuff, but there's no salt at all in it. So find something that enhances the taste without adding a whole bunch of sodium, and um, it's a lot easier to enjoy things like green vegetables and lean protein than it is just merely to, just have to take it in. Because would you agree, Jeff, that, we can tell people, and you can tell people and coach people all you want on getting great nutrition. If they have to if they're acting like a kid eating Brussels sprouts, it's not going to last and be a lifestyle change where they have to figure out how to make it their own, so to speak.
Right, and when talking of nutrition, I eat healthy food because I like the way I look. I know by eating these vegetables, I'm going to be able to keep my abs, I'm going to keep my muscles strong, that kind of jazz. And when you have that transition, that not vanity, but self-awareness and confidence, your whole mindset changes. When you're like, oh, I'm never going to be able to have cake again and this and that, you can, because once you're eating healthy, your body's pushing that out. I'll eat bad every once in a while, have ice cream or eat a row of Oreo cookies or whatever. But I know, even Taco Bell late night, but I know the next morning my body's going to push it out because it knows it's getting healthy food in immediately. So the more you train your body in with the good and out with the bad, even when you eat bad, it'll flush it out.
Right. And I think it's an interesting segue right into knowledge of a plan. Because whether it's a plan of working out or whether it's a plan of eating, it all comes back to creating a plan and having a knowledge of that, and teaching your body what that plan's all about. Am I
Mhm.
on base there or off base?
No, you're on base because with a plan like, Pat wanting to do the triathlon or Chris Ducker wanting to fix his back or, any of my clients, like pregnant people, things of that nature, want to lose the baby weight. When you have a plan, a lot of people don't know how to do it. Like Pat wants to dunk a basketball. He has no idea what to do to dunk a basketball. So now that he has that goal, we set forth a plan to do so, and as he follows it, he's 5'8", and he's now touching the rim of a basketball hoop that's 10 feet in the air. So
Wow.
it's, he's like, oh my God, I've never been able to do this in my entire life. And he's so excited, and just now, then it makes you want to do more and more and more. So um, that's where I come in, is the listening to people's plans to know how to put them in place so then they can get the results, get that excitedness, and then find the next plan that they want to do. They want to keep going, keep going, keep going.
Right.
You lost your weight because you were on a plan to do so, because you wanted to, get healthier, be on stage in front of people, have that confidence. I mean, confidence is a huge factor when you're talking about health and wellness.
Yeah, and I can tell you, from my own personal experience, I mean, it's interesting because, and folks, if you haven't seen your mind do this, I invite you to watch what's going on in your mind at different stages of your life. And here's what I mean. I know when I was bigger, I could act, if I look back on those circumstances when I would meet people and talk to people, I can tell you I acted like, and if you look from the outside, I didn't have the same confidence level. And I was kind of just like the shy fat guy, even though I'm not shy. And that's one of the reasons why people could never relate the two, because when I would come out, when I would finally be comfortable around people, I'd show them my true self, and it would be so incongruent because I'd be kind of like the John Candy, Chris Farley, happy fat guy, and they didn't realize that that was me normally. That what they were seeing was this: I was so unsure because I was overweight that they would accept me. That I, didn't have that confidence, but I know that when I lost the weight and everything else, you walk in with a different air of confidence and everything, and everything else. So back to the important thing, which is you and the knowledge of the plan. So it sounds like one of the things you do with your clients is to understand where they want to go and then help work together with them to create a plan so that they can understand and they can accept and they can take that plan into their core, so that even when they're not, even on the days or the times they're not working with you, they can stick to the plan. I mean, is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, I mean, because if you correlate it to business, if you want to be a millionaire, well, that's not going to happen tomorrow by not doing anything. You have to have a plan in place to do your marketing, build up your audience, get customers, build brand awareness, all that kind of stuff. So your plan is being put in place, whether it's by you or a coach or someone else. I'm doing the same thing for fitness to take you to the millionaire status of your body. You know, like I feel like I'm $1,000,000. You feel like you're $1,000,000 because you changed and you feel good. That feeling, no matter how much money in the world, isn't going to change because I feel great. You feel great. And I want everyone to have that same feeling of, you know, being able to walk around on a beach with their shirt off and not be self-conscious, or is my belly hanging over my pants, or is this bathing suit too tight if I'm a woman? You know, things of that nature.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly. So a question about plans. When you work with a client and you're trying to help them achieve a goal, do you, I hate to say force, but do you recommend they stick to the plan, or do you monitor their future goal and as that changes, change the plan along with it?
oh, it's always changing. You know, I have to roll with the punches. Things come up. Life isn't a perfect plan anyway, so it's ever changing as far as the how to get there, but the end goal is usually always the same.
Epic. So in other words, you really, it sounds like you subscribe to the fact that that the journey and the fun of the journey is more important than that actual hard and rigid plan that you put in place to get there. So that if you want to, you know, it's kind of like if you want to take a sightseeing tour, or if you want to take a detour, you understand what that detour is going to cost, but that you understand that it might be worth the cost. I mean, is that fair to say,
Right.
or?
And how to get back on track and, you know, reevaluate how important that end goal is so that if that program has to change a little bit, we can change it. Or if, you know, for some reason they go on vacation, then we have to change the workouts for like that vacation. And so life in general is going to have obstacles, and it's just how to deal with the obstacles for that plan to come in place where they're happy at the end of the day with where they reached in that journey.
Yeah, and in the end, I mean, a plan is like a good plan is like a map. I mean, you understand that you need to be to, to achieve. If you want to drive from Pennsylvania to Arizona and you want to make it there in 3 days, you're not stopping and you're driving straight through. But if you have 3 weeks to
Right.
get there, you know that you have to be to this state by this day and this state by this day, or you won't be able to make up the time legally to actually. And
To
it's
get
kind of
there.
an interesting. Well, it's kind of an interesting. It's kind of the same analogy because you can't. You can't just. You're not going to drive 200 miles an hour unless you have a hypercar and don't get stopped by any cops. But you can't drive
Right.
200 miles an hour legally to get to Arizona from Pennsylvania and make it there if you leave a day and a half after you were supposed to. Just like there's no legal way to meet your fitness goals if you completely take detours all the time and don't realize that your goal is 3 weeks from now and you haven't lifted one weight or you haven't done one thing, right?
Right. And, you know, and that's where my knowledge is so effective because when there is little detours, I can get you back on track and still get you there by day 4 or day 5 to Arizona as opposed to just day 3.
Right, exactly. And it sounds like it's all about, okay, so if there was a detour, it's about readjusting maybe the end dates and saying, look, you now have blown past that, but rather than completely getting rid of it for your entire life, let's get you there a couple of days or a couple of weeks later than you originally planned on getting there.
Yes, exactly.
And then that works, unless, and this is where having an accountability partner and them knowing your plan, it sounds like it also works so that, if you have a big race coming up, that
Hmm.
if you stay closer to the plan, you're going to be able to achieve success and get to the weight or get to whatever you wanted to by that race. Where if you don't have a plan, it's a hit or miss whether you're going to achieve what you wanted to by that race or that event, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You got
Epic.
it. Hit the nail on the head.
Epic. Before we get into call to action, I just want to talk real quick. I mean, it kind of goes into plan, and it's something I didn't plan on doing until about a half hour ago. The fact of the matter is, this whole concept of virtual training is great. And, we've got folks all over the world. We've had people from Canada to, I think it feels like the only country we haven't had is Mexico on this show, but we've had Russia, we've had Ukraine, we've had Spain, we've had India, we've had Australia, New Zealand, the UK, Canada, all over. So we have people all over the world watching this.
Hmm.
The interesting thing I find is that you work with people virtually. Give our folks a little bit of a taste and understanding about what you do to train somebody virtually.
Well, okay. Right now, I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio. I have clients that I train in person, but then virtually, I have people in California, Texas, Oklahoma, Oregon, Canada, Michigan, Florida, Philippines with Chris Ducker, and Jamaica. So that's all over the place as far as geographically. And it's just the same as working out with someone because it's like right now, I can see you, you can see me. If I'm telling you to do bicep curls this way, I can watch your form, count your reps, keep the pace going, show the intensity, all that kind of jazz. Um, the huge benefit though is that's where we get into not having to decide between business or health because you don't have to sit in traffic going to a gym. You don't have to drive literally anywhere. You don't have to have a whole bunch of equipment. On my website, I have a list of resources, like 4 or 5 pieces of equipment you can get for under $60, and we can utilize everything and have huge, dynamic, fun workouts that you never get bored. So it's not like having a P90X DVD because honestly, you're going to go through P90X even if you did all 3 months of it, and then you're never going to play it again. You're not going to go, oh, I want to start all over again. You want the next, something different.
Yeah.
So with me being a live training, we are always doing something different. We're hitting those goals. We're not taking up a lot of space. You don't have to spend, if you have treadmills or whatever, that's great. We'll utilize it. But we can just do body weight and just start from there. So a lot of my clients are so appreciative of me because they work from home. They have kids. They have families. And they don't have time to go to the gym. So they make it a priority to see me every week and get their routines, work out at home, and it makes it fun because ideally everyone would want to work out at home. It's intimidating being in a gym with all the bigger muscle guys or this or that, especially being a female or an overweight guy or things of that nature. So now there's no intimidation. There's all the accountability in the world. It's totally convenient, and we get results every single time.
Epic. So folks, I'm going to put up a website right now, which is look confused every now and then. That's okay. It's my life. So, folks, I'm going to throw up Jeff's website now. It's totalbodyconstruction.com. And if you go to the resources area, there's a free ebook there called Magic Pill: Lifestyle Secrets of a Personal Trainer, and I highly recommend you get it. And as you can see, as you've seen from hearing Jeff's hero's journey, hearing how he's had a mother with medical problems, and he had a business that was, I was going to say mildly successful, but yeah, let's face it, it was challenging. And I say mildly successful
Yeah.
because, well, guess what? You're going to have to go back and watch to see why I'd even say it was mildly successful, but it was a challenge at the best. He had one business. He realized it wasn't his passion. He realized that there was something else he should be doing. He trusted his gut, and he's turned what used to be a sub, $50,000 a year business, $33,000, and with expenses, it was a lot less than that, as you'll hear when you go back and watch the hero's journey into a multiple 6-figure business. And then if you're just joining us now, you definitely want to go back and listen to and watch the rest of the Experts Focus segment. When we talked about things like being accountable, we talked about nutrition, and we talked about knowledge of a plan. And a lot of stuff you're going to hear in there isn't the same old that everybody else is just out pumping. Jeff does this virtual training thing, which I just think is epic, and it's just amazing that nobody else has done it before then. I think it's going to be one of the next big things, and if you want to get on the forefront and want to get an epic personal trainer, you need to reach out to Jeff. But heck, by the time this show airs, he might not even be taking clients anymore. He might be so busy. I mean, he's already got people like Pat Flynn and Chris Drucker on. So if people like that can trust Jeff with their body, you can too. So what you definitely want to do is go out to totalbodyconstruction.com and check Jeff out. Jeff, I think there might even be, at least at the time of recording, there might be something about booking a free assessment. I don't know if it's going to be there when this episode actually airs, but I think I might have saw that on your website. I know I saw a lot of epic stuff there. Folks, like I said, if you haven't watched the rest of the episode, go back and watch, because you're going to understand for yourself, and your gut's going to be able to tell you why Jeff is the guy that you need to work with. And folks, until we meet again, Jeff, thank you for being an epic guest. Thank you for coming on Expert Showcase today, sharing all your knowledge. Thank you for the free resource you're giving people. Folks, I definitely recommend you go out and check it out. And until we meet again, make it an epic day.